The moment I stepped into my new workplace, I felt like I was in a completely different world. My name is Tom Yates, and I'm 32. I recently switched jobs to a game development company as a programmer. Originally, I was working elsewhere, but due to certain circumstances, I ended up transferring here. I didn't really have a choice in the matter, but on my first day, I honestly regretted coming. One reason was that there were quite a few people who seemed to have it out for me, a mid-career hire. Currently, I'm troubled by the presence of my colleague, Linda. She is 2 years younger than me, at 30. If she stays silent, she's remarkably attractive, with the facial features and body figure of a model. I was surprised to find out she's also a programmer like me. I had assumed she worked in a more public-facing role, like public relations. Essentially, she's my direct senior. Linda seems to have an unusual animosity towards male colleagues. She might have had some difficult experiences in the past, but that has nothing to do with me. Yet, Linda's anger and irritation are currently directed straight at me. It's an utterly unreasonable situation. Thinking I shouldn't have come is understandable under these circumstances. Don't just stand there daydreaming. You're not expecting someone to bring you coffee as soon as you sit at your desk in the morning, are you? This morning, as soon as I arrived at my desk, Linda snapped at me. The worst part is that Linda's seat is right next to mine. I don't think that at all. I replied lightly, and Linda snorted in dissatisfaction. Instead of starting her own work, she kept watching my every move. This happens every morning. Looking for mistakes, nitpicking. Even if it's not a mistake, or if it's not done her way, she exaggerates and gossips to everyone. Because of Linda, I seem to have been labeled as the incompetent team member in this workplace. I'm stuck doing menial tasks and running errands every day. The person who brought me to this company was my middle school friend, Nathan Carter. We went to different colleges, so I don't know how Nathan spent his university days. He founded this game company during his college years and has been here ever since. The first time we got back in touch after a long while was 6 months ago. He asked for my help to improve the quality of the programming team. I joined this company, intending to lend a hand for Nathan's sake. I told Nathan not to give me any special treatment when I joined, because I wanted to interact with my colleagues without any preconceptions. However, Linda has significantly derailed that plan. I'm racking my brain about what to do next. Everyone was saying President Carter poached you from another company, so we were all expecting some kind of genius to show up. But what we got was just an errand runner. Huh? Linda deliberately spoke to me in a loud voice, making sure others could hear. It was obvious to anyone that she was speaking loudly so that the other colleagues could hear her. Responding in anger would be childish. I've decided to ignore Linda's remarks, but her persistence in picking on me is truly relentless. Are you ignoring me? I'm talking to you, Tom. I might be younger, but in this company, I'm your senior. A little respect wouldn't hurt, she said, annoyingly. This must be what they call an annoying nag. I just smiled slightly at Linda and continued to ignore her. As if nothing had happened, I turned on my computer and started my day's work. You better take your work seriously. You'll never catch up to us otherwise, Linda said, sensing my lack of response, and then she left her seat. Finally, I can work in peace. I sighed a small sigh of relief. Hey, you look down, Nathan said. After enduring Linda's sarcasm all day, I was completely drained by the evening. Even though I was out for dinner with Nathan for the first time in a while, I seemed to be lost in thought. Did I look that way? Just a bit tired, I replied. Maybe you're just not used to the air in America anymore, Nathan said with a meaningful smile. From his expression, I could tell he was still holding on to the fact that I had quietly applied to and attended a university abroad. "What's with that tone? You still holding a grudge?" I asked. Nathan is usually a straightforward and good guy, but he becomes a different person when this topic comes up. It seems Nathan had his own plans. He wanted us to attend the same university and start a company together. That was Nathan's plan and dream. He should have told me something so important sooner. Expecting someone to read between the lines is not how things work here. I went to a university abroad because I wanted to experience something new. I always felt that I fit in better abroad than in America. I'm not very attuned to the subtle emotions of others, so that's what I thought vaguely. But there's another reason I've never told anyone. Because you went abroad for university, my startup was delayed by 2 years, Nathan said, his eyes slightly unfocused from the wine. "Hey, aren't you drinking too much? You've never been good with alcohol," I cautioned him as he reached for the wine bottle to refill his empty glass. "I only drink like this here. Maybe it's the owner's taste, but the wine and the food are so good that I always end up drinking too much," Nathan said. I couldn't help but agree with Nathan's words. This was the first place Nathan brought me to after I returned to America, and it's a very comfortable place. The creative French cuisine served here is unbelievably delicious. The wine selected to accompany the meal is almost gone from the second bottle. "It makes me happy to be praised by Nathan," a young woman's voice said from behind me. Nathan raised his hand slightly towards the owner of the voice. "Since I praised you, today's on owner Madison," Nathan joked. The woman laughed from the back of her throat at Nathan's light-hearted comment. A woody fragrance wafted past my nose. "Nice to meet you. I'm Chris Madison," the woman said with a smile, peeking at my face. Hearing the name she introduced, I was taken aback. It was because I had seen the name on the contract. Owner Madison is a woman. I had totally assumed it was a man. Surprised too much, my true thoughts accidentally slipped out, and I quickly covered my mouth with both hands. Chris laughed heartily, perhaps finding me amusing. She then pulled up a chair and sat down next to me. "It's because my name is Chris. I often get that reaction." Resting her elbows on the table and looking up at me with a mischievous gleam in her eye, she seemed to glare at me playfully. Despite saying she often hears it, she appeared somewhat displeased. "But Chris is such a beautiful name for a woman, isn't it?" Without any flattery, those words just slipped out. I was surprised at myself. Chris seemed just as surprised, her eyes widening even more. "I'm happy even if it's just flattery. Thank you," she said with a smile, looking very attractive to me. Her expressions changed so naturally and sincerely, making her incredibly likable. The one who provided the funds for my startup on a whim was Chris here, so she's also the owner of my company, and she owns this place too, Nathan explained. From Nathan's tone, it seemed Chris was quite the entrepreneur. She must have a knack for business. Yet, she looked younger than us. When Nathan was in college, she might have still been in high school or even in middle school. How she managed to come by enough funds to start a business just like that was a mystery. The mystery only deepened. "Don't worry, it's not shady money," Chris said with a chuckle, as if she could read my thoughts. "The only thing I've figured out from our first meeting," I said. "You've figured out something already," Chris responded, sounding pleased. It made me think she was someone who enjoyed conversation. "I've realized you're a woman full of mysteries," I replied. Chris smiled enigmatically at my response. Chris laughed meaningfully at my response. Then, she reached out with her pale hand to the wine glass left on the table. The dim light shone through the red wine, casting a beautiful glow on Chris's pale hand. It swayed gently, looking incredibly elegant. I watched Chris slowly take a sip of wine, vaguely aware of my excitement about what she would say next. Men are silly. Women are made of mysteries. A woman who can be fully understood is hardly worth mentioning, she replied. Her response struck a chord with me. After being nagged and criticized all day, I couldn't help but cherish this moment of enjoyable conversation even more. Hey, am I intruding here? Nathan interjected, sounding a bit disgruntled, as if he felt left out of the conversation between Chris and me. Are we being a bother? Maybe we are. We both responded, causing Nathan to let out an exasperated hey, hey. Unbeknownst to the tipsy Nathan, Chris had discreetly passed me her private phone number as we were leaving. Even after such a wonderful encounter, the same dreary morning awaited the next day. Fortunately, I've always had a strong tolerance for alcohol and have never experienced a hangover. Nathan, who arrived at work a few minutes after me, looked terrible and was slumped over his desk in distress. You drank too much, I told him, placing some hangover medicine and a bottle of mineral water on his desk. With a hoarse voice from the alcohol, Nathan slowly took the medicine, saying, "My bad," as he did so. I'd hate to call it a favor, but I'm looking for some information, I said to Nathan, who had just chugged down 500 milliliters of water and was catching his breath. I can give you any information about Chris. I've been sworn to secrecy, Nathan replied, prompting me to click my tongue in frustration. It seems Chris got ahead of me. Now, figuring out how to approach this situation becomes a troubling dilemma. Nathan is the only reliable source of information I have at the moment. President Carter, hungover again, Linda interjected between Nathan and me. Although Nathan's